and I would like to welcome everybody here. I'm so glad that you all came to honor Troy. You know, he loved you. He talked so highly about you. I don't know all of you, but he used to tell me everything, how special everybody was when he worked with it, or he knew. I'm very happy that you're here, and I want to thank you again for being here. I miss my son terribly. Thank you.
My name is Leora Kay. For a long time I worked here at the synagogue as a rabbi, and that's how I came to know Troy, and that's how I came to know a lot of the people here. And when James asked if I would say something, he and I checked in a little bit about it, and I sort of gave him the rundown. I said, well, James, I'm not really sure exactly what I would say, because I know that the people that are going to be there, probably almost all of them, knew Troy and know Troy better than I do. And I said, but I think I'd probably say something like this. First, a thank you to Ross and to Sherry and to Megan and to Jason, who can't be here, but you guys are his family. So as much as the people who are here loved him and knew him and know him, it's not the same as you do. It's not the same as you did. So thank you for letting all of us know somebody like Troy. And the second thing is that we really probably can't be here thinking about Troy without thinking about Ben and thinking about Norma, who are also a big part of who Troy was. But what I said to James was that I feel like Troy is one of the only people in the world that would have ended up with a room full of Jews and Christians and Muslims and atheists and people who identify as LGBTQ and who identify as straight and, you know, theater people and non-theater people and people who, you know, come from the most diverse ethnicities and backgrounds and cultures, and like a short Jewish girl, all standing in the same space and in the same room together because we all just knew Troy. And for me, even more so, because this is where I knew Troy. You know, in a space that is, at the end of the day, the basement of a synagogue, but also, some days, a really fancy theater. And that's why we're all here, because Troy would have brought all of those kinds of people together into this kind of a space. And that says a lot about a person. There's a lot going on out in the world right now. When we walk out of these doors, there's a lot going on in the world that separates people. And there's a lot of language about how everyone is different and we should be afraid of those differences. But I feel like Troy was a person who said to us, no, don't be afraid of those differences. We should all be in the same room together, eating good food and drinking and having fun and, you know, doing a show or something. And that's not very common right now, to have people like that. And so I was talking to Sherry and Megan before, and I said, you know, I think a lot of times people are going to talk about Troy in the past, and not even just because it's still happening, but I still think about Troy in the present. I don't think about Troy as something that has passed in my life, and I don't think that many of you do either. And that's important. And if you go back and read those pieces in the back that his students wrote about him, even more so, that says something amazing about what kind of a person Troy is. So there's a story in Jewish folklore about the very last thing that God created at the end of creation. God had created humanity, and God had created everything that we know and everything that we see. And the very, very last thing that God created in the world, God was talking to the angels about it and said, there's one last thing I want to put in the world. It's called nefesh. That's the Hebrew word for soul, or for spirit. And in Jewish tradition, the angels actually didn't get along with Adam and Eve. They were really jealous of people. They were nervous about what was going to happen with their relationship with God once people existed. And so they actually said to God, don't put this most beautiful thing, the last thing that you're creating, don't put it on earth. The humans will ruin it. And God says, no, I think nefesh is something so special, I have to put it on earth. And God says, what if I put it all the way up at the top of the sky? And the angels say, no, they'll find some way to fly to it, and they'll touch it, and they'll sully it. And God says, well, what if I put it all the way at the bottom of the sea? And they say, no, they'll invent some sort of deep sea diving something, they'll get down there, it'll be awful. God, don't let Adam and Chava, don't let Adam and Eve anywhere near nefesh, soul. And then there were two little kid angels sitting in the back. One was like a tiny little baby, and one was like about a 14-month-old. I think they might be here. And so this tiny little baby and this 14-month-old, they came forward to God and they said, we have an idea. We think we know where nefesh should live. And God says, where? And they said, well, what if you put nefesh inside of every single human being? so that if somebody found someone else's nefesh, someone else's soul, they would never ever do anything to hurt it. They wouldn't do anything to harm it because they had worked so hard to find it in someone else. And God says, yeah, that's exactly it. That's where I'm going to put nefesh. So in Jewish tradition, we believe that every single person has a soul, something that you work hard to know in somebody else and something that other people get to work hard to know in you. And we're here because Troy worked so hard to know every single person's nefesh, every single person who they were, and what they were just outside of their body, and what they were outside of the physical trappings of who it was that put them in front of his face. And that's the part of me that feels like Troy's nefesh is still here. Troy's nefesh is still here. And I know that's cold comfort for the fact that Troy isn't still here. But Troy's nefesh is still here. Thank you.
I'm Megan Diana, Troy's niece. I'm going to start off with a poem that I found, and then I'll go into what I wanted to say. No farewell words were spoken, no time to say goodbye. You were gone before we knew it, and no one knows why. Our hearts still ache in sadness, and the secret tears still flow. What it meant to lose you, no one will ever know. That's by unknown, just so you know. I honestly can't even begin to describe the pain in my heart from you being gone. You were the one person I knew I could go to if I needed anything, or even just to talk about music or movies. Every Sunday was the normal call day from Troy. Even if you didn't answer, he would still leave a long message. Always checking up on the Diana kids, making sure we were actually accomplishing the goals we had set for ourselves. Once my dad passed away, along with my best friend's passing, I wanted to give up. There was no point. I lost my dad, my best friend was gone, I had no one. Troy became a major part of my life. Our bond got stronger. He not only was an uncle to me, but he filled that father figure spot that I didn't have. And he was always there for me, even though I was wrong most of the time. He never gave up on me. He pushed me to be the best and to follow my dreams, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm following my dreams and keeping my goals at the top of my list, and I now have to live not only my father's legacy, but I'm living his as well. And by the way, Troy, don't grade me on this. Because I'm pretty sure I failed the grammar on this.
For the past 10 years, Troy Diana was my best friend. We lived together, traveled together, worked together. We loved being together. As soon as we met, I knew that Troy was someone I wanted to be around. We met on Monday, June 5th, 2006 in the Lincoln Center Directors Lab. Over 100 directors gathered from all over the world to participate in a 2-week theatrical workshop. Troy and I were selected to be part of a group of 10 people tasked with creating a short piece about the New York City subway system. There we were, 10 strong-willed directors in a studio, figuring out the best way to take this idea and turn it into an artistic piece. People were hurling insults, there was fighting, shouting, it was mayhem. But Troy and I, both never ones for confrontation, stood off to the side and just watched. We thought it was hysterical how silly they were all acting. And then when they all were exhausted, we stepped in and pitched our idea. Let's just tell our craziest subway stories. And that's what we did. Troy and I clicked on a personal and professional level. It was so much fun to collaborate with him. And from that piece about the New York City subway system came our show, Tales from the Tunnel. Troy and I worked together almost every single day for 4 years to get that play off Broadway. We even got to ring the NASDAQ closing bell with our cast and crew. If it weren't for Troy motivating me to get the show up and running, some days literally giving me a reason to get out of bed, it never would have happened. He's one of a handful of people that I can honestly say changed my life. Throughout that experience, and in every part of his life, Troy always led by example. There are no words strong enough to emphasize what a generous, kind, loving, and gentle person he was to me and everyone else he knew. I remember thinking about a year into our collaboration that I would never ever meet a more wonderful person than him, and I don't think I ever will. But I don't need to tell you what a great guy Troy was. You already know that or you wouldn't be here. But every time I sat down to figure out what I was going to say today, it just seemed impossible. How do you pack 10 years of memories into a few pages? You can't. So just like a Golden Girls flashback episode, here are some of the highlights. Viewer discretion is advised. One Labor Day, about a year after we met, we decided it would be fun to go to a drag party in Fire Island. So together with our friend Pat Mills, we cobbled together some second-rate Kmart moo-moos and got dressed. We had no idea what we were doing, clearly. At first, Troy didn't know where to put the wig. But we finally got ready and headed over to the party looking like complete messes. I'm surprised they didn't throw the drinks in our face. But we had so much fun, we all decided to do it again next year. I christened Troy with his first drag name, Miss Ida Kildabitch. Troy didn't just paint Fire Island pink on that trip. He threw glitter all over it. He was fearless. I remember him dancing all dressed up on top of a box when someone, probably jealous of Ida's beauty, threw a piece of ice at him and hit him right in his eye. Joke was on them though, he was too drunk to care. Once he recovered from this run-by icing, he started to wring the vodka out of his hair and into his mouth. It was a great night. Of course, this was just the beginning of many adventures together. And no matter what cockamamie, Lucy and Ethel type scheme I came up with, Troy was always at my side, with a smile on his face, despite his better judgment. I would cry too if I saw those pictures. About 2 weeks before he died, I was putting together an audition video for a TV show called Worst Cooks in America. Even though we lived together for so long, and he knew what a terrible cook I was, he agreed to help me out. Despite sharp knives, scalding pans, and the very real threat of salmonella, he was by my side filming for 4 hours. And as if that wasn't enough, his loyalty really showed when he volunteered to be my taste tester for that very dangerous chicken pot pie.
Go for it. I'm a little scared. She like, what does it taste like? Dry. It's dry. It's like a biscuit, but I mean, but the biscuit's real dry, like a dry biscuit. Like a stone. A stone that's been sitting out for 3 days. Did you include chicken skin? It tastes like it wants to be chicken nugget. I mean, I can taste the flavors there that's supposed to be chicken nugget, but something's a little off. Like it's not quite chicken nugget. It's chicken not pie.
Another time, I submitted us for a Date My Best Friend feature in Time Out magazine. We were hoping to find a couple of eligible bachelors ready to go out on a double date. We filled out questionnaires and they even held a photo shoot for us. This was the photo the magazine decided to print. From the way they positioned us, it looked like we were already having enough fun by ourselves. Neither of us got a date. I told Troy that since the article thing didn't work, he was going to have to go back to good old-fashioned flirting, a wink and a come-hither look. Troy said, "Mama." He always called me Mama. He said, "Mama, a wink and a smile do not work for me. I can't wink." And it was absolutely true. Troy was physically unable to wink. I tried to teach him, but this was the best he could do. Troy trying to wink. Other side. If ever I was feeling sad, Troy would just try to wink at me, and immediately we'd crack up and I'd feel better. There was no length he wouldn't go to cheer me up. I'm sure he's probably done that at some point for every person here. And when I say he'd go to any length, I mean it. There was one summer while we were roommates that I had a really, really bad heat rash. It was so itchy, the worst pain I'd ever experienced in my life. Nothing helped, and the only thing that brought a tiny bit of relief was if someone sat beside me and gently tickled me. So every night when I laid down to sleep, Troy would come into my room, lay down next to me, and rub my back and my neck and my arms and my legs like a mother or father would do to their child. He did that to me every night for weeks. I used to tell him that he was more maternal than a breast. Eventually, after weeks of rubbing me to sleep, the dermatologist called and told me I didn't have heat rash, I had scabies, which are extremely contagious body illness that can be caught by simply shaking hands. And there Troy had been for almost a month, tickling my entire body. I honestly thought that when I told him our friendship would be over. But nope, instead he continued to tickle me to sleep every night for weeks until the medicine fully cured me. Then he applied a huge dose of it to himself. There are probably some less gross stories I could have told, but I don't think any of them could show quite like that how incredibly selfless Troy was. When he wasn't tickling me to make me feel better, he was making me laugh. Sometimes it was intentional, but other times our laughs came totally out of the blue. Like the time he was doing an exotic dance in our hotel room and pulled the headboard down. Or the time we went to Washington, D.C. and forgot dental floss, so he tried the clothesline in the shower. I cracked up when he did his pat your weave dance for me. And again on the morning, I caught him trying to comb 2 giant hickeys out of his neck. His attempt was useless. Despite the fact that it was 90 degrees out, he left for rehearsal in a turtleneck and woolen scarf. After a long day at work, it was always a joy to come home to this, my 2 favorite ladies, Liza and Troy. There was one time we decided it might be a good idea to invest in higher quality chairs for our bar. Or the time we went to the STD clinic together. There's no photo for that one, sorry. We even went into the examination room together. The doctor came in. She was this very short Asian woman with a super thick accent. She asked me when the last time I had sex was. I told her 2 months. Then she asked Troy, and he told her, about 6 years ago. At which point she turns to him and goes, oh, dry spell. Or the time Troy and I went to Palm Springs because we found a great deal on a hotel room. What we didn't know until we got there, though, was that we'd accidentally booked a clothing-optional resort. People always dressed for dinner, though. After we ate, we went out dancing. Troy and I got tired and left, but I stayed at the club for a bit longer and met a really cute guy. We wound up spending the entire night together. Later that week, we ran into him. He started chatting with Troy, and it was eventually uncovered that this guy's brother was Troy's college roommate. The plot thickened when, after he left us, Troy leaned over to me and said, Mom, I lost my virginity to him 13 years ago. It turns out that Troy and I had more in common than we ever thought. Those are just a few of the wild memories I had with Mama. No matter how sad I get when I think about him not being here anymore, I always end up laughing. Nothing brings me more joy than thinking about the time we spent together. Since Troy died, I've learned just how much a good laugh can heal pain. I think Troy knew that his whole life. I'll miss him every day, but I know that his spirit, his humor, and his love of life will live on in everyone he ever met. Thank you.
As Troy always did, he loved his musicals, and he often found pieces of music from each show that would really speak to him on a very deep level, as he was always so kind and sensitive with others. So one of the last pieces of music that really touched him was a piece from The Color Purple called Too Beautiful for Words. And it really does speak to the type of person that Troy was. So this is for Troy. I've always been the kind of gal who had a lot to say. I say the things that's on my mind, too dumb to shy away. But you hush my mouth and still me with a song I've never heard. I guess that means that you are just too beautiful for words. I've seen this life from high and low, and all that's in between. I've danced with dukes, cruised with counts, been courted like a queen. But when I see what's in your heart, all the past is blurred. The grace you bring into this world's too beautiful for words. You hide your head under your wings, just like a little bird. Oh, don't you know you're beautiful, too beautiful for words. Oh, Troy, you're too beautiful for words.
Troy, why? I have tried not to think of you as gone, because when I do, my world fills with sadness. Until this moment, it hasn't been real. You were a good man, a kind man, as sweet to everyone you met as jasmine in the night air. You had an infectious smile and a laugh. You knew what to say and when to say it or not. You were a man who was mastered in pop culture, reality TV, game shows, TV dramas, music, and film. Anything I needed to know, I consulted Troypedia instead of My dear friend, you had a passion for theater not many have. Together we saw almost everything, buying pre-sale tickets, going to TKTS booth, taking advantage of not only the seats unfilled, but a deep friendship, fulfilled as we sat through many plays, always a great evening enjoyed in unison. You once said to me that theater was your spiritual church, where your soul was fed because it made the world make sense. You had a theatrical voice as a playwright that balanced so many worlds. A gay man's voice, religious rebellion, insight, and a child of a Peruvian immigrant mom and an Italian-American dad who was brought up in New Jersey, Texas, and Florida. You shared your stories with us as an actor. You found the depth in your characters to make them relatable, human, and funny. You said so much in your plays and had so much more to write and share. You and I grew together when we worked together. You helped me love theater when I felt I was no longer part of it. I was fortunate enough also to travel with you, and in fact, we spoke a half hour before you died. We talked about my trip to Peru and how much ceviche I was going to eat in Peru, and you said, it's not going to be as good as my world famous. And I said, we would go together to Peru for your 50th birthday. And then you said, well, if that doesn't happen, we could have a big buffet with all my favorite foods, ribs, pasta, dumplings, and White Castle. You would have loved Cusco, Peru, because you were everywhere there, in the Inca rocks and terraces, and the abundance of rainbow flags. Your essence was present and alive. I would stop and look at the beauty of Peru, and I would see you, the serene peace, the assurance that everything was good in the world. When your mother died, you were so profoundly sad. And after your brother Ben died, you processed his death by writing plays. I saw your sadness lift only when we were creating theater. I think when you died, when you had your heart attack, you had a choice to stay on with us or to be with your loved ones. Your father, Ross, told me when he was with you in the hospital that you looked peaceful. I believe you are at peace because you are now in the company of those who you miss most in your life, your mother and Ben. I am so sad you were gone. But I know where to find you when I need you. At the theater, in a bowl of dumplings, during the Beyonce song, and in the beauty you saw in people, and we all saw in you.
A reading from the Book of Troy. Every year since 2000, I've gone to the Gay Pride Parade. This past year, not only did my usual suspects of friends, but my Mona Lisa came along too. And as soon as the parade ended, the Christopher Street stop platform was full of shirtless beefcakes, half-drunken queens, and pure merriment. Now, the train pulled into the station, and we all pushed on, and we ended up in a car with several participants from the parade, including a group who represented PFLAG. Now, I'm usually like, yes, so whatever, when they march by, but this year was different. There was a woman who really got my attention. She had a huge pink sign that said, "I'm proud of my gay son, and what?" She was right next to me on the train. She was still holding that sign, and I couldn't stop staring at it and her. Now, my mother and I were always close, but one thing we agreed to disagree on was my being gay. Now, it had gone on like that for years, but last summer something told me that the time had come to stop agreeing to disagree. I wanted her to know exactly how I felt, how it hurt me that she didn't completely accept me. I told her that at times I felt she didn't love me, and I got, "Are you crazy? Of course I love you. What do you want from me, to march in a parade?" "Well, yes! I want you to be the one with the biggest sign." No more words were necessary. That was our last conversation before she died. Cancer got the best of her. But that day on the train, that mother with the biggest, pinkest sign represented every mother of a gay son. My mother. The lady sensed I was staring at her. We made eye contact and I started crying. She dropped her sign and hugged me, and I assured my friends and my men, Rick, that everything was fine. The lady wiped away my tears and gave me a wink. I wanted to wink back, but I don't look so pretty when I wink, so I just said, "Thank you." And we got off at the next stop and continued celebrating the day.
Hi everyone, my name is Nyambi,
and I am Troy's self-proclaimed heterosexual wife. I met Troy 11 years ago when we were assigned, we were both temping for the summer. It was an assignment that was supposed to start at 8 a.m. and Troy usually got there around 10 a.m. And he would always call me before coming in asking me if I wanted breakfast. My response was, no, because we're going to get lunch in about an hour, because we all got here on time. He'd laugh and then got to go to lunch with us for the whole hour, though he had only gotten to the office an hour before we went to lunch. From that year on, we were inseparable. Our friendship flowed naturally, as if we had grown up together from childhood. Troy made my life better in so many ways. He made me fall back in love with theater, introduced me to so many wonderful people that are here today. And he was always there for a shoulder to lean or cry on. I feel almost as if I'm speaking in cliches about him, but the Troy just wasn't just a person. He was an experience. We took many road trips together, but our very first one was to Philly. Troy had just gotten his license back. And so we went. Boy, was that something. People were driving past us, and Troy kept screaming, "Why are they going so fast? Oh my God!" I told Troy, because this is the highway, and no one goes the speed limit. So he goes, okay, I'm going to be a speed demon right now. He went about 10 miles faster. I teased Troy about that for a long time. He always took my teasing with a good heart. His long voicemails, as everyone knows. His refusal to accept technology. His passion to fight against injustices. It ain't right, Yami, it ain't right! He always would say. I say, calm down, Ray. Troy would say, I just don't understand why people can't treat others better. His compassion was enormous, and he made sure he let his voice be heard. I could talk about Troy for hours. My life was changed because of him, and it won't be the same without him. So to my friend Troy, you mean the world to me. I love you beyond this earth, and after this lifetime, I pray we meet again in the next.
Hi, I am one of the myriad people who met Troy for the first time in this very room. I musical directed the Music Man here, and one of the things I remember most about Troy was his filling in for the people who invariably were absent. And believe me, you haven't lived until you've seen his Yulene McKechnie show. However, when I was deciding what to sing for Troy and for y'all tonight, I talked to James to see what would be best, and he recommended this, and I am honored and privileged to sing it for you tonight. Let's pretend we're riding on a kite. Let's imagine we're flying through the air. We'll ascend until we're out of sight. Light as paper, we'll soar. Let's be one. Let's enjoy the view and Neverland, floating far from the shore. Some things are meant to be, the clouds moving fast and free, the sun on a silver sea, a sky that's bright and blue, and some things will never end. The thrill of our magic ride, the love that I feel inside for you. Let's ride high beyond the break of day, sleep on stardust, and dine on bits of moon. You and I will find the Milky Way. We'll be mad and explore. We'll recline aloft upon the breeze, dart about, sail on with windy ease, pass the days, doing only as we please. That's what living is for. Some things are meant to be, the tide turning endlessly, the way it takes hold of me. No matter what I do, but some things will never die. The promise of who you are, your memories when I am far from you. All my life I've lived for loving you. Let me go now.
Troy's sister-in-law. I met Troy in 1987, the beginning of my junior year. I met Sebastian, also known as Ben, Troy and Jason, not realizing that I would be part of their family in the future. Troy, as we all know, was a kind and had a personality that attracted people to him. Later in 1992, he became my brother-in-law. Knowing him already made things easier. It wasn't like meeting someone new. We already knew each other for a couple years, and for quite a few years. He always stayed close. He always had a close bond with his brothers. All three of them always kept in touch, and their bond always grew. He always visited at least twice a year during the holidays, and sometimes a few times, other times. He always talked frequently on the phone. The kids were little. He had a niece, later, and a niece and 3 nephews. And he adored them when they were little. He adored them when they got older. Somewhat. A lot of phone calls. One thing, y'all have something in common with Troy. I never had that special connection with him, with the music. the actors, the movies. Ben and I always argued because I would not know names, I would not know anything. Troy and Ben could go on and on about names, and I'm like, I don't know who that is. But he forgave me for that, and he didn't bug me about that. But Ben always gave me a hard time. He goes, you don't know, don't even try. But he was cool. He was a great brother-in-law. I actually started talking to him probably more than my own brother, and that was a strange thing. And when he would call, I'd say, oh, my brother's calling. He's like, no, it's not. It's Troy. And I was like, yes, it is Troy, but he's my brother too. A few times we didn't travel, even though we lived in Florida, we didn't go to the theme parks very often. But a few times that we did go, we had, Jake was the youngest at the time, and it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and Jake hadn't had a nap. And he started crying and fussing. We were in the lines, and it's hot in Florida, and Troy's like, get your child, please. You know, please, just get your child. But he was so much better, you know, over the years and every day. Of course, the kids grew up. They didn't go to theme parks anymore. In 2011, his oldest brother passed away from exposure to a serious respiratory infection during a CPR. 5 years later, fighting for a cure, he was honored in Florida, line of duty. Troy and I were on a mission to get him his name on Washington. Florida recognizes him. But Troy was determined, we were still determined, and to this day we're still determined to have his name honored in Washington. And that's one thing Troy said. Every time we saw a deputy sheriff that was working on the case, we were like, nope, we're still going. We turned in paperwork. And Troy's like, let me talk to them. Let me have a word with them. Find out what's going on, why this is not happening, which it should have happened 5 years ago. After Sebastian's passing, Troy, on his own decision, and many of y'all probably knew, he made the decision that he was going to move down to Florida to help me and the kids. And of course, Jason, his youngest brother, was there. He did that on his own, leaving what he loved the most. Of course, Orlando has some things, but no. He ended up becoming a professor at Valencia College. Did it, but it wasn't what he wanted to do. He was there about 2 years, maybe even a little over. But it was time for him to come back to his dream and keep going, doing what he loved to do. He was always a phone call away, or a flight. Life came back into Troy as soon as he moved back to New York and New Jersey. You could see his excitement and all the things that he talked about what he was doing. The next 5 years were tough. Troy kept in close contact, talked to the kids on a regular basis. Of course, after the kids, they were 5 years older by that time. His focus was their academics. His brother's was not so much academics, just get through school, you're good. Troy, no. What are you doing? Have you studied? As they got older than that, what are you planning to do after school? What are you planning to do after high school? Let's get a checklist. Like Megan said, every Sunday, call. Have you done my checklist yet? Why haven't you done my checklist? When I come to visit, I will be there sitting by you to go over your checklist. The kids did listen, overall. He focused so much. Megan graduated 2011, right after her dad passed. Jackson Vaughn graduated thereafter in the following years. Jake is still in high school right now. Troy made himself available no matter what. Even though between his jobs, between the theater, he always made sure he had time for his niece and nephews. I hope every time we talk, I hope I never burdened him, but he never showed any problem when I called or if I had anything to discuss with him or any issues. He was always a great mediator. I'd call him for advice or intervention or just to talk. He would always help by listening or just being the mediator. He always had a listening ear and offered advice, except during the Oscars, the Tonys, the Grammys. I learned never to call him, and he wouldn't answer the phone. I would try to call during commercials, but usually he still wouldn't answer, but sometimes. I could always count on Troy for discussions if we were struggling with anything. Of course, with their passing, his brother, their dad, he would always try to help them get through this, and that's what we were working on again. At times, it's still hard, and this, of course, is 2 steps forward, 10 steps back. He always wanted to find some way to help relieve some heartache. He did not want to just hold them back in life. He was their motivational speaker to work hard, dream, go for what you want. You can do it. Make your dad proud. He never asked for that job, but his love for his family was obvious. As they got older, he called weekly, even sometimes more than a week, weekly, to check up. I know we will never comprehend what we've gone through now. We can ask why, but I know we won't get the right answer, or any answer. I still continue to ask why. Troy was proud, making 23, working hard, going back to school. Vaughn, 20, he's in Australia, all because of Troy and Ross. He goes, go after your dream. You want to go to college there? Let's do it. Jackson graduated a year ago, got a full-time job, working, not looking into college, but Troy was fine. He goes, not everybody's for college. Jake is 15, sophomore in high school. Troy helped him get his learner's permit already. And now he wants to drive all the time. But he already has college plans. Troy was a friend to so many, made everyone's day, knew how to make you smile, cared for so many who will always be in our memories. My kids will now have another legacy to follow. He was my brother-in-law, but he became more than that, a true friend. He became a true brother.
Most of y'all know I can talk. You know me. But tonight, I want to just sing and let the lyrics and let the melody do the work. I've been so many places in my life and time, and I've sung a lot of songs, and I made some bad rhymes. I've acted out my life on stages with so many people watching. Alone now, and I'm singing this song to you. I know your image of me is what I hope to be. This world treated you unkindly, but tell me, can't you see? There's no one more important to us. Tell me, here alone now, and I'm singing this song to you. I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind that I put down in words how wonderful life was with you in the world. I sat on the roof and kicked off the moss. A few of these words, they got me quite cross. But the sun's been quite kind while I wrote this song. See, it's for people like you that keep it turned on and on and on. You taught me precious secrets of the truth, withholding nothing. You came out in front when I was hiding. But now I'm so much better. And if these words, they don't come together, just listen to the melody, 'cause my love is in their eyes. I love you in a place where there is no space or time. I love you for my life. You are a friend of mine. And when this life is over, remember when we were together. We were alone, and I was singing this song to you. I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind that I put down in the words how wonderful life is with your spirit.
And I am all alone. There is no one here beside me, and my problems have all gone. There is no one to deride me, but you got to have